Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We're at the Building AI-Informed Library Collections, the Power of Library Vendor Partnerships. I'm Selena Chow, University of California, Santa Barbara. My role is to do selection for English language, humanities, and social sciences content.
My name is Jenny Hudson, and I'm with GOBI Library Solutions from EBSCO. And if any of you may not know GOBI as its own set of services, but we are part of the EBSCO umbrella, and we are particularly involved in academic library book and monograph profiling and helping people find the material. And we have an interface that is directed at academic libraries so that you can find and order titles, both print and e.
Hello, everyone. My name is Allison Henry. I'm the head of collection strategies for the University of Alberta Libraries in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
So we are here to have a lively discussion. We are going to talk and ask questions and answer them to fill space, but we actually hope that you will join the conversation. So anytime, raise your hand and I'll run the mic to you, and you can ask questions or find comments. We really want to hear from our colleagues across the world. As a note, the session is not being recorded. We thought it would help facilitate better conversation, more open conversation. And as I mentioned, we are here, we introduce ourselves. We have some QR links if you want to help us know who you are. This one, there's two. This one is just to say like where you're from and what you do. So we'd love to know your thoughts in our QR code surveys, but we hope that most of the participation is here in the room. So we learned about a concern for collection strategies librarians for AI-generated content in content that we buy, and especially for books. So I work in humanities, social sciences. A lot of the acquisitions is monographs. I think a lot of the focus right now is journals. Journals are leading the way. We see a lot of issues in AI literacy or journal retractions, use of tools in the researcher realm. We want to focus on a smaller part, which is collection, selection, librarians who do selection. So how can we help find and identify this content? But we didn't just have this idea. We learned about it through a listserv. So actually, I'm going to just introduce the topic, but I'll leave this up so you can introduce yourselves a little bit more. There are just emails being forwarded by colleagues. Some say, hey, did you know that there's this book and it's an AI summary and it's in our library catalog? And how did that happen, right? For my library and for other libraries, it's either by, it's an oversight, individual oversight by individual. I'm part of a consortium, so we have package deals. So some ebook titles were included, including AI-generated summaries, which is a publisher using a tool to repackage their own content and then selling it to us, right? So we all talk about the use of AI as tools. Students use it, we all use it, but this is something we didn't know about, and we were also paying money for it. So we were kind of concerned, like, what is this? How much is there? What we can do? This is a new concern for librarians. When we investigated the cause, we saw the titles, we looked at it. There is information about it, but it's after very long paragraphs, and it's hard to find. And maybe librarians don't even know to look for it. Additionally, our vendor rep, our sales rep, didn't know about it either. So it's a large company, maybe doing many things. One different arm is doing AI innovation, and then the ones that collections librarians interact with, they don't know what the AI content is. So it's a challenge for us, and we want to know if you've been seeing this or not. So our first set of questions for you is, what are your concerns regarding library content created with the use of AI tools? Where and how would AI be welcome in a trusted work? And does your collection development policy address these? And so again, I mentioned we'll just question each other, but we'll give you time to not be shy and share your thoughts. So Allison, how do you think this affects you for your library? Like for University of California, Santa Barbara, we are a little bit, I think, still starting to think about how do we phrase it in a collection development policy. In the United States, we see a lot of the leadership from public libraries. They specifically say, because they get, I think, a lot of media attention and they serve the community, they say, you know, we're not going to select AI generated works, especially for audio content or books. But in the academic sphere, I haven't seen any collection development policy yet in the United States. Maybe you know some, and I'd be happy to learn about them. But how about you? Like, how did you learn about this news, and what was your reaction with your staff?
I feel like I learned about it from you, possibly. But certainly, no, it was not something we were aware of. We also buy large front list packages through various consortia, and so we're not doing title by title selection for many of these scholarly works. But certainly, we had a lot of questions about the scholarly value these machine-generated literature overviews represent. In particular, when I'm thinking about somebody who does want that kind of overview of a scholarly topic, my expectation is that they are interested broadly on what has been published on that topic, not just what one particular publisher has put out on that topic. And so, yes, we did not really see these as particularly valuable, and our immediate response was to go back to the consortium through which we purchased this package and ask if they were aware of it and if other member libraries were aware of it, and try to see how they felt as well. Even in discussions, I would say, within my library, there seemed to be a number of different opinions at this stage on the value of some of these AI tools for summarization or for other purposes, and we have mixed. A lot of people seem to have the impression that they can see the potential, that these tools are certainly getting better and better all the time compared to a couple of years ago. They do a better job, but we're not really there yet where we would trust them for certain types of work. And so I would say, yes, I come at this from a pretty skeptical position, and certainly in an era of shrinking budgets, we already have the content that was summarized to make these books. We buy the journal package as well. We don't need it repackaged into monographs to pad out the front list, which is what it feels like as a library.
Yes, and that's why one of the introduction questions is if you are more on an AI skeptic or AI booster range of in your library. So I know that we need to embrace it and understand how we can use these tools, especially because our patrons are using them. So for me, like, my concerns regarding this is the cost, right? You're responsible for your funds, and what is the value that is actually bringing? And in my opinion, so the example that we used that was circulating in emails was the AI generated summaries from Springer Nature. They used Dimensions AI tool. And I feel like we did talk to several Springer reps. I feel like they're doing a lot of experimentation, and they added it to the package, but didn't really promote it in a way that libraries want to know about. And so the language was that it's asked for by researchers, but when we asked our researchers, we're like, no, maybe not really. And we think about how they packaged and titled the book. It was called A Literature Overview, which I think is confusing for libraries doing instruction who are responsible for literature review. It confuses the topic and the rigor of that process for learning about the background on a topic. So yes, I think a lot of people like AI, it's a shortcut, but that's one of my concerns is the AI literacy relationship with what we buy and present in our catalog. Any of you have thoughts? Again, open conversation. What are your concerns regarding library content creation? So we're talking about monographs, but maybe you have other thoughts related to this. Where and how could AI be welcome in a trusted work? I think many of us think of translation as different than summaries. There are other ways that I think AI tools can be used in scholarly works. And I'm just curious, does anybody have a mention of AI works in your collection development policy? No? Yeah, we're all kind of in the beginning of the stage of this, right?
We are likely going to add human authored to our description of the types of works we collect or we seek to collect.
For our campus, we looked at the leadership from the public libraries, all their collection development policies, and looked at the language they used. We didn't want to totally dismiss it. I think it's relevant, and I think, you know, how you say, oh, you have the discretion to, you know, select a work that brings something to, like, is relevant for the scholarship that's not represented of elsewhere. But also our library is interested in making this part of a cohesive AI strategy. So maybe not AI literacy, one thing, and then collection development policy, another thing at different timelines. We want to make sure we plan it together. So we're a little bit doing a stepping back. Also because we work in a consortium, we can't make all the changes to how we present the works because it's a consortium purchase. It goes to the catalog from a different entity. So we're bringing in all partners to talk about this and understand the labor, right, it takes to make changes that we want to see, and how would be the best way to do that. I think we can move on to a second part of our presentation. Yes. So we kind of structured our talk into 3 segments. So this other segment, again, if you are shy, it's a little quiet in the room. If you prefer to answer on the poll, you're welcome to do so. But we welcome, you know, to talk and join us in discussion. You know, we have some publishers in the room, and that's great. We have a lot of library representatives as well. Should publishers be required to track and disclose all levels of AI involvement in the creation of a work? What do you think? Would you like to see that? Would you like to see it in the description or in the marketplace that you use? Oh, yes.
Hi, hello. I'm Sarah Duff. I'm with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, the Director of Collection Strategies. So I think it's probably impossible for them to track what authors are doing with AI. You know, it has to be self-reported by the authors. But ideally, yes, I would love to know. I think there really does need to be a way to report how this work was generated and who actually authored it and what level it was authored. But it's very, very tricky. I am not a cataloger. I do not have a cataloging background. However, maybe there are people in the room that do, and I'm wondering, is there a field in the metadata that can be used for this? I mean, I know it can be added to subject headings, you know, AI generated or that sort of thing, but is there a standardized field that everyone is using to track this? Because I think we do need to be transparent about what's in our catalog.
So I wanted to address the publisher piece, because what happened after Selena and other libraries sent this to GOBI, it was actually the listserv had a copy of the GOBI record, and we had noted in a note that it was AI generated, and it turned out to be quite a big fuss. A lot of people sent it to me and to all of my coworkers, and we started having a conversation internally that we were already working on a tag about AI. And for all of you who may not know, we profile book in hand with a human. It is not AI generated profile, it's a human that does this. So a human is looking through the book and is adding tags that would be of interest to the library, so that when you either have a profile that sends you books automatically or you're looking for a book, there is a tag that you can search for. So one of the things that happened then was we came up with this idea that in addition to a book about AI, we should have a book tag that said AI generated. And initially that was going to be encompassing anything that was created by AI, edited by AI, or translated. So we had this conversation and we rolled this out initially. And one of the pieces that was part of this discussion was, how do we get that information? So Selena mentioned Springer, and this example that started this conversation was Springer. And we went to them and they're like, yeah, we're doing it. And they were very forthright and even provided us a whole list of all the titles that would fit in under that. And we started there, and then we started talking to other publishers, and there were significant numbers of them who are grappling with this in their own way. And I know we had a deep conversation in the fall with like IGI Global, who was also dealing with this. You know, how do they identify what's happening? And they were putting in place their own specifications to authors that if it is a certain percentage or a certain amount that is being generated, some sort of metadata, some sort of something in the system that tells us, the vendor, that that's there, that's in place, and the library. So it has been that conversation. I think you're right. I think we're pushing publishers to do that, and I'd love to hear from any publishers here in the room about any sort of struggles you've had. Selena is looking at some people. So.
But Sarah had brought on some really great comments. When I first started about this too, I think it's still beneficial to think about what you want. Write down all the things you want. At first, when I learned about this, I'm like, oh, we should just try and assess all this. And I thought, no way, this time thing. How do you even find them? How do you assess it? You know, what's good and what's not good for your patrons, for your library? It's like, okay, scratch that. But I think that it's helpful, and I think that you're right. Like, but I think in the news, a lot of the media I think is on retractions, and so there's a lot of attention to that. That's actually helpful because it might help drive, like, and streamline some kind of new workflow where, if publishers are going to have to go through all the work of checking things, maybe there's like a field that gets developed at the stage of research or submission that then carries on to publication, then carries on to marketplace, and then carries on to libraries. And I'm not sure if that makes sense, right? But you mentioned something about a tag or a field, and you know, it gets a little bit technical for, like, you know, what do you index and where do you put it? But that's all the things that come after our conversation that we want to bring you into, like what matters to you, what do you want, right? And then we can start thinking about what exists. I was talking earlier that I think a lot of the solutions will require collaborative infrastructure development, right? And it's hard with all the things we're already doing, trying to keep up with AI. And maybe this seems like you have to prioritize things, but it's all related because the goals of publishing are to serve the patrons. Like, we need to understand what we're giving them. Like, if we don't even know where our money goes and what it is, right? That's a little bit of a concern as we talk about AI doing a lot of work for us. How well is it doing it for us, and how are we going to track that and oversee that? Yeah. Comments? Don't be. Oh yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Peter Schopert, National University of Singapore Press. So as a publisher, of course, we are dependent on the voluntary disclosure of information. And I have to say, so far, our authors have been very upfront, and what they say they've done is reflected in what we see, but that's not going to last forever. I did want to raise another dimension, which is there's a lot of demand from our instructors at our university for licenses to be able to upload readings, which the library has, or maybe there, has license to upload them to chatbots developed particularly for a course, for a class. And of course, that's not generally part of our license. We could be happy to do that, but organizing that is very difficult. And if it's going to be used for training by the model provider, we're not at all happy to do that. So I'm just wondering whether, when your universities provide chatbot tools and so on, is there any, we're very concerned that students are uploading PDFs. We provide DRM-free PDFs to libraries as part of Project Muse and JSTOR and so on, but those PDFs have now been all ingested. Because when we decided on that world, we were not seeing that this development would happen. So I'm very concerned then about that we build, in order to build this collective infrastructure that will allow us to know, to protect basically research integrity, we have to do something. And I think this instructor and student uploading of content, which is not DRM protected, is, I hate DRM, and we're very happy to provide DRM-free material to libraries, but now I'm thinking, oh my God, can I really continue to do that? So I think this is also part of the equation. I have to say I was completely shocked at I just did a search of my university's OPAC on machine-generated summaries, and there they all are. I was completely shocked that that category had expanded. I already think there are enough works that are created that are not no, I won't go there. I'm a university press, so I'll just say we like the good monograph and the very, useful edited volume that is actually defining a field or bringing. We're not fans of repackaging in the various forms that are out there. Oh, sorry, I rambled, but I just wanted to say that the point about the students uploading stuff is, I think, also part of the package.
And
Thank you so
can
much.
I speak to that a little bit? It's taking us a bit off topic, but I do think this is something that, at least in our library, we have found adds to the complexity of that communication with our users about what they can do. Obviously, with the various license agreements we sign, we're always committing to doing our best to make sure users abide by the terms and conditions of these agreements, and that they're for their personal scholarly use. They're not for sharing. And when one of these notebook type tools was introduced on our campus, we did have questions from our Center for Teaching and Learning about what can we tell students they're allowed to do with this tool. And I'm by no means a copyright expert, so please do not take copyright advice from me. But we did have several discussions about this, and at least for our jurisdiction, what we came up with was basically, it really depends on the tool itself and what the tool is doing with inputs. And if we don't have clarity about how the tool treats inputs, we really can't give students very good advice about this. If we are confident that the use of the tool is for that individual student only and the results are not shared with others, then really you can do with it anything that you're allowed to do as an individual with the work. I, as an individual, can read a bunch of works and write summaries and produce new scholarly output. That's, in fact, what I'm supposed to be doing a significant amount of the time. And it's not a violation to use a tool necessarily to do that. But if we don't have from our vendors really clear information about how the tool treats those inputs and whether they become shared in any other way, or whether they become part of a larger corpus that is used for training, that would, that in most cases for our licenses, that would not fit. That would not be permitted, and that's not what we want students to be doing with their work.
I think every major consumer chatbot is now sharing by default.
Yeah,
Every
well, in
major
this
consumer
case,
is sharing. Whatever you upload is being shared
Right.
by default, and it's extremely hard to opt out. So
But
that
when
I
the-
would urge
yeah.
librarians to remind
well, and
patrons
this is
of
why
that.
it kind of comes back to speaking with our campus information technology folks as well, who provide these tools, who license these academic specific tools that are not, it's not the chat GPT that anyone can make an account for, but it's something that they have access to only by virtue of being an enrolled student at our institution. But it's still quite opaque. It's hard to find out that information about what the tool does. And I think this is taking us a little bit away from what we were hoping to hear,
it's
but
totally on
I
track.
think it really speaks to all of the different challenges we're experiencing in our roles related to this, in what we collect, in what our users are wanting to do with those works, and in what is possible for them to do with those works. We're doing a lot of learning on the job, which I guess was always part of being a librarian, but it's a very interesting time.
I appreciate all the information from our University Press attendee. I've noticed also some publishers because of this, are choosing to take their abstracts down and close their abstracts, descriptions of the content. So because that also would be mined, and they don't want to, make the content a saleable product from another company. It's a fairness issue, but also it takes away from what a researcher would need to do their work. So that's another trend, I think, because of the data mining and repackaging, and maybe not making products that are actually more helpful. They sometimes are. We talk about AI as a good hope. So again, AI skeptic, AI booster. There's many dimensions to this. It's all related. I think we need to understand at a broad level and then focus in, because it helps us make the best answers for our needs in our own institutions to learn from each other in the related topics. Does anybody else have comments on this question or the related ones on the screen? So how should vendors handle AI-generated content in their discovery platforms? and what level of metadata detail do you need to know? And I'm interested in this as well. Like if you want to see translated with the use of AI stated in the thing, as translation versus summary versus however else people are using AI at different levels. Like what kind of words or ways of using AI would you want to see in metadata, if you are interested? Maybe you're fine with whatever content is in the library catalog.
And Selena, I'll just mention that when I said we started with AI generated, that has been in place now for about 6 months. What we realized was that was too broad of a term. So we are actually tweaking that a bit, and we are now going to have an AI translated tag as well, because as we started working, we realized that they were quite different. So it's whether or not it was actually generated versus whether or not it was just used as a tool to help in translating. And I think when we were talking about this panel, one of the things we were kind of questioning was, is translation a better use? Is it a more acceptable use? So if you found out something was just AI translated, would you be more open to bringing it into a collection?
No, I want to give the room a chance for this first, but I feel like in this audience, the answer is going to be pretty high. How many of you speak multiple languages? What is your experience with translations and translation tools in the world? I find that they still miss a lot of nuance, and I don't want those errors in academic works I'm providing to the researchers and students at my institution.
Yeah, I was in a session earlier this morning. The presenters from Taiwan about AI literacy. They also, you have to use it, but then it's not that great. Any other dimension on that or experience you want to share? Oh yes, maybe I'll go with a new speaker, then I'll come back to you.
Hi, I'm Daniel from Edinburgh University Press. I don't speak any other languages, but I love translated literature because you get access to other experiences and other cultures that I wouldn't necessarily be able to get. And I've gone to a lot of talks, and translators are so in depth with the specifics of very small areas where the language is restricted to maybe even one town. And there's different, euphemisms and things that they use that only they will know. The likelihood of it being uploaded to an AI and being used properly is incredibly low. So you miss a lot of the nuance with the language. And I think that would, if I was to pick up a book from a Southern American author and it said it was all translated by AI, it would make me question, are you missing something that somebody who is experienced, been in that area, knows how the language functions to those specific groups of people? And it would be slightly off-putting for me personally. But, yeah.
I definitely agree with that. And I think the nuance is totally lost. But we did have a conversation as the group of us about where does accessibility, how does that weigh? If it is, can you at least get to the basic gist of it versus do you get all the poetry and nuance of the writer, and where is that balance?
Yeah, and I think that is important. I know at my school we have a significant number of international students, particularly among our grad student population, and I know many of them do rely on translation tools to help them get a better understanding when they're reading outside of their first language. And I want them to be getting good quality information, however they are getting it. And so I really hope that these tools do improve. I just don't think my experience of them is that they're not there yet.
Yeah, I agree totally, but some of my subject librarians in various languages are pretty adamant that we do need to have some of these AI translated works. They need to be transparent that they are AI generated translations, because they have people studying translation and how to translate, and so they want to look at a record of this is what it is at this time. this is what the tools are capable of now, and compare that to, how is it good, how is it bad, what's it missing, and that sort of thing.
And that was actually part of a conversation we had, and is it on the next slide? I don't know. We were talking about whether or not there is a tipping point. At what point does AI translating or generating or writing become an acceptable level? And I don't know if there ever will be, but it'd be interesting to hear if you had thought of that.
There's another comment here, but I just want to briefly say we had to pare down our questions, but we talked about the importance of the generated tools per discipline, right? Definitely comparative literature, English, they care a lot. Maybe social sciences or history, depending on what you're researching, your needs may be different, yeah.
We publish quite a bit of translation from Asian languages and also a lot from European languages. The issue is almost never the nuance of the sentence by sentence. It's all about the structure of the rhetoric and the references. So we find that so a machine translation might get better and better and better at the language, but if you're going sentence by sentence, you're not really communicating that well. It's certainly in the humanities.
Support for humanities, I love it. Any more comments? Okay.
While I'm changing, I will say that it's been really interesting over the 6 months to see how many people have opted to use the AI-generated tool, and for the most part, the libraries have almost universally excluded it to a point that we decided that it was going to be automatically excluded, and then we talk to libraries and see if they want to open it up to allow for some sort of notification. But for the most part, it's been excluded. As we're just rolling out the AI translated tool, we'll have that same conversation. We haven't made the decision. We're not automatically removing it yet, but it has been, again, a conversation about what we were just talking about, like where does it fit, where does it not, and who would be acceptable.
Yeah, I think now we've come to my section. Our question here is, what has your library done about machine-generated works, or what do you plan to do? At my library, with this particular example that came up, we were not successful in having these works removed from the larger package. And so what we did was delete the catalog records for those we could identify. So our users will still have access to these books if they're on the publisher's platform, but we will not be pointing them to those monographs. And this is extra labor that we will likely have to repeat on a recurring basis as more of these works get added, which I will say makes me a little resentful. And especially because we don't have an easy metadata flag to use to identify them. We're trying to develop a search query that we think captures them all so that we can remove them, but we're not even confident that we have been successful in that necessarily. So we'll rely on lists maybe from publishers if they're cooperative about it, but yeah, that is what we have done at this point. I don't know how many of you were aware or had any of these same concerns before you came to this session. Does anybody have examples of approaches they've taken in their institution?
Hi, my name is Kasturi. I'm from the American University of Sharjah. Yes, we have come across machine-generated works on our DDA package, and we did actually contact the publisher and ask them to be removed. So they were very helpful in actually removing those works, but the only reason we came across those works was because we were just doing a general search. We would have never known that they are actually, AI-generated works in the DDA package. So we don't know how many more of these are in that package unless we actually go through every single title. And I mean, we don't have time for that. No. So, yeah.
That's kind of why we're here. We wanted to tell you all, so now you know, and share with your colleagues. So I think that's part of what leads into a next question, right?
Yes, absolutely. How can librarians best advocate for what we want? So I did mention off the top that our purchase of these works was through a consortium, and after some talk among members of the consortium, it was decided that we would let let the director and negotiator speak to the publisher on our joint behalf about this. And we were told that the publisher will address the metadata transparency piece by improving identification in the KBART files and MARC records, but no timeline has been provided for this, for when they will have this solution in place. So we see this as, you know, a nod in the right direction, but fairly limited progress. Various members, like the individual local responses were not that different. In many other institutions took the same approach we did of removing the records from their catalog, and they have been adapting their workflows to include monitoring for this. As I said, it's, you know, it's not a one-time task. It's going to require repeated searches and removals as we go along. It feels like including these things within standard packages is the piece that we were particularly concerned about. We do not see these monographs as equivalent to the other monographs we are buying from this publisher, and having them lumped in as part of this package. You know, I don't know that they're necessarily attempting to say, oh, look how many more works we're publishing and you're getting better value for your collection dollars. It's not that significant a bump in the number of titles, but I still feel that way about it a little bit, that it's not, now when we look at those numbers of titles in the front list, we don't feel as confident about what they might include as we did in the past. So basically at the current point in time, we're very much in a continue to monitor and follow up about this progress on the metadata transparency. And so we're very happy that other vendors are also working on the metadata piece, because I think that will be the most valuable part of it. So it's really, we want to be able to make informed decisions about what we're collecting, and this felt like a case where we didn't have the sufficient information.
I will say, now that we are tracking this and making it searchable and available in the interface, one of the other things is that we do sell these large e-collections, and some of our library partners or library that have worked with us have asked us to provide that information. So moving forward, we are doing such for large consortia even, that will say, please note anything that we are purchasing that has one of these tags. So that is a piece that we've already been asked to do. And again, we've only been doing it for 6 months, so it's not sort of very historical, but it does enable us that ability to assist in that way. So use that when you can.
Absolutely, yes, we'll be happy to do that. I don't know, does anyone else have other comments about how we can best advocate for these changes that we would like to see?
Yeah, no, you're great.
Sorry to speak so much, but I do really want us to have a standard at some point, a metadata standard, so that everyone is doing this in the same way, so that we can add a filter to the discovery layer so that people can opt in or opt out of seeing AI-generated content in their search results. Because, you know, there are reasons to seek out specifically AI-generated content to see what it is doing or to see what it looks like, but there are absolutely valid reasons to, you know, take it out of your search and not want to see it at all. So I think transparency is absolutely key, and I think having a standard would make it easier to do that type of thing.
And I think that brings us perfectly to the last question, which is when I mean, perhaps it's not phrased clearly enough, but I would like to know from others in the room what AI transparency efforts they are aware of. There are a couple that I had in mind in asking this question. I know NIST has an AI use taxonomy, and also the generative artificial intelligence delegation taxonomy that Layden has initiated. Are there other of these taxonomies or efforts that people are aware of that we could be maybe sort of coalescing around or promoting as an appropriate standard that could be used?
So I can share one thing. It's not exactly related, but for JSTOR Ithaca, they had it's like more like a questionnaire open survey. If you've seen AI churn, you know, like the fake stuff, there's a submission. And they've been doing a lot of work on tracking more of the end user tools. So again, like we're talking about something very specific for content and helping librarians do the work and advocacy there. I can't remember the name right now, but I have my cards here. You can follow up. In the United States, there's a nonprofit organization that has like talking points for vendors of like how to bring up the topic with them. Just for example, we did this. Nothing's changed yet, but we want to make sure the conversation is started. We're talking to them. They hear it, you know, over and over again. I think just one conversation is not going to do anything, but if everybody keeps on hearing it, they'll know it's important, right? I think that's part of the work is just talk. So Alice in the beginning talked about how she talked with her consortium and associations. We did the same. Like, it's not going to become a priority until it's part of every conversation that relates to what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Lulu from University of Indonesia. This is maybe not about the taxonomy of AI, but in our University of Indonesia, first that AI transparency effort that we want to do is about the declare of AI that the student or maybe lecturer use AI in that in their paper, and then we have a standards that signed by rector of university that if you use AI, you have to declare it, and how many %. And we have to use that, and not more than 20% of that. So in our paper and others, if you use AI, it's okay, but not more than 20% like that. And we use standard that we communication to other student and lecturer about it. Yeah, thank you.
That's fantastic. I think that's like a step ahead of what we would like to get towards. You know, you've thought about it and have clear guidance for students who really want the guidance and guide rails. They're looking to their professors and libraries too. So thank you for sharing. Other comments? Advocates, do you care? Do you not care? It's fine. Just read AI content. I actually thought of a visual. So we have this game we played as kids called Telephone, right? You say something to a whole line of person. So imagine in publishing using AI content, the content, the point gets more and more messed up as you go along, and maybe use layers and layers of AI tools. It's kind of funny. Yeah. Although I know AI tools are great, and to make them really good, they do layer to improve the search results and the content verification.
I do have a question. So the most of the AI-generated monographs that I've seen so far have been print books that people have selected, interestingly enough. So it's not been the things in the packages. So I'm curious, are these things in the vendor packages, are they open access, or are they actually selling them title by title as well? It's one thing to just include it in the package, but they're actually selling them? Wow.
Yeah, so part of the thing is, you know, the students are using it, you use it for free, but then you're also paying for it. It's kind of ridiculous. So like, it's great for a company to see this as an innovation, but it's a little bit on the other side for libraries, you know, especially collection librarians.
And again, that's why it's so important for us to note that everywhere, so everyone who's looking at it and purchasing it could be aware of that before buying.
Yeah, and we are at sort of the last minute, I believe, of our time slot. Can you advance the slide here? I would very quickly like to know, did anybody, it feels like we had a fairly, like a lot of consensus in the room about their desire for transparency.
We heard consensus.
Not a lot of people advocating for, oh, I don't mind being in the dark about it. But did anybody's opinions change over the course of this discussion, or did you learn anything from being in the room today?
So we hope if you're shy, you're not raising your hand, you'll take a picture of the QR code. We're going to leave the survey open. We'd really love to hear the feedback. As we mentioned, it's related to advocacy, right? If you care about it, we care about it too. We can bring it up as part of our examples. You know, learning from another country, like, oh, our colleagues globally care about this. You know, there's different trends, but they all are important and matter. So we can use the feedback to help our own institutions where we work. Yes, so we'll leave it open, and we hope to hear from you. And if you're interested, contact us, find your contact, and we'll send you results.
I just think that we are using our budget to purchase this kind of stuff. And and we have the power to actually stop it. We just need to actually advocate that we do not want this in our work. I mean, these are our collections. This is what we're promoting. It really starts with us. We have to be passionate about this, or we're going to really question research integrity, because this is the type of things that we're putting out there.
Ambra Gagliardi, University of Utah. To answer your question about how do I feel about this, I understand the budget point and buying this stuff that we're already buying this like mixed up mash of it, recreated. But I think what's missing here are the user perspectives, right? Here we are making the assumption that they don't want it. And a lot of these students are growing up and coming out of high school, going into university, having already used it, and that's only going to perpetuate more. And then I also wonder, maybe faculty wouldn't mind these types of materials in their collections to teach information literacy, right? Shouldn't this be caught, or shouldn't this come out in the wash, right? Shouldn't this at some point through their academics, the students recognize that they found an AI content, they're going to be finding it online regardless if it's in our catalog or not. So anyway, there could be a major study done, right, about user perspectives on this, but I think we as in this room are making a lot of assumptions right now.
That's really great. And I think what I think of is the quality of the work, right? It really depends. It absolutely could be used for coursework if it works. I think from my perspective, we're in a place where there's a lot of variety in the content, so we don't really know. We, as library information professionals, don't know what to trust. So then students are also maybe coming with less of that knowledge. We're trying to teach them how to do that. And then if it's just in the catalog with no guidance, not recommended by the professor, they would assume it's just as good as the next title next to it. But hopefully, I feel like it could go many ways. Hopefully it changes for the better, right? There's enough work through associations and conversations that the content becomes better quality, is better identified, is vetted also, as you say, by students and professors. So there's a lot of good moving forward work to do. Other comments? We're here. I don't know, how are we officially over or? Okay. Well, we're here, but thank you for being here with us, and we will appreciate hearing your additional feedback from the QR code.